You enter the final room of the dungeon. A large man stands before you, donned in heavy, epic, silver armor. He draws a massive sword from a sheath at his side. For the map, he'll be represented by this chapstick. I've been playing D&D for about 4 years now, and originally when my group started playing, we used theater of mind. In other words, every action of combat happened within our imaginations. It worked to an extent, but some battles were complicated and it became difficult to keep track of everyone's position. Because of this, we later decided to incorporate maps into the game. The grid paper was relatively cheap and easy to acquire, but the miniatures were not, because miniatures are really expensive, and most come unpainted. To bypass having to spend so much money and time, we instead decided to use items from around the house to represent our characters. I already had a bucket of LEGO minifigures from my childhood, and they worked pretty well as our characters. The enemies we decided would be represented by the off-brand LEGO minifigures I had. 4 years of epic D&D adventures later, and we still use LEGOs, but today I decided I wanted some cool-looking minis. I'm always looking for hobbies to get into, and while possibly the nerdiest hobby known to mankind, collecting and painting minis seems like a lot of fun, if a little daunting. But I wanted to learn. I'm of the opinion that if you wish to acquire a skill, all you need is a little stubbornness. I've never painted a mini in my life, but hopefully by the end of this video, that will have changed. The first step in my new quest to become a miniature painter was the Reaper Miniatures Learn to Paint kit. It seemed like a good place to start, coming with everything a beginner would need. An assortment of different color paints, paint brushes, detailed instructions, and 3 miniatures. I decided to start with the skeleton mini because it seemed like the easiest to paint and what the instructions suggested. Following the instructions, I began with a base coat. At this stage, I started to feel like this hobby wasn't for me. I was so nervous I would mess up, and the base coat didn't really look that good. But I continued on. The next step was the wash, which is a thinner paint used to darken the shadows and bring out details. The wash made me realize that my initial nervousness was based on ignorance. The base coat isn't supposed to look amazing, it's simply the first layer. The wash really accentuated the darker areas of the model and looked really good, giving me a lot more confidence moving forward. The final step in the painting process, I learned, was adding highlights, which I did by dry brushing. Dry brushing is where you have barely any paint coming off of your brush and use just the tip, according to the instructions, to apply paint to the elevated areas of the model. I had now finished the skeletal part of my skeleton, and it didn't look half bad. With a newfound confidence, I moved on to the other parts of the model, basing, washing, and highlighting. I finally started to get into it. Painting felt relaxing. I would be happy to put this on my gaming table. I'm proud of it, especially since it's my first time ever painting a miniature. Now it was time to hone my skills, become proficient. I decided to move on to painting the armored dude and the orc, and it was another success. I now had 3 miniatures that I would be happy to put down on my table. I even ordered some new miniatures and painted those as well. Sure, they're not amazing, but they are satisfactory. And with more practice, my skills will continue to hone. Because skills don't come easy to me. I've got to work at them. And I'm going to continue working at this because I'm stubborn. And painting miniatures is a lot of fun.